guys, welcome back to another video. Today's going to be another book versus TV show. And today I'm going to be talking about Midnight Texas. Now, Midnight Texas was a show, I think it came out on NBC 2017-ish. It got 2 seasons before being canceled. Midnight Texas is based off of a set of 3 books written by the same author who did the True Blood series. But it's different. It's more subdued, I would say. True Blood's got a lot of, like, sex and vampire hotties and Eric. And Midnight Texas has supernaturals. It's got vampires, it's got were-tigers, it's got witches, it's got psychics, it's got you name it. But it's more subdued, it feels more real, even though these characters are supernatural. And it takes place in a town called Midnight Texas. A town that's in basically the middle of nowhere. It's like a cross street, and that's about it. There's a few businesses, 1 restaurant to the town, there's a creepy hotel. Like I do in every one of these videos, I will start out with character descriptions and then go into a few events that have changed, or maybe they haven't.
Soldier, keep on marching on, head down till the work is done.
When it comes to characters, we obviously have to start with Manfred. Manfred in the show is the main character, but in the books, he's kind of just there. It's kind of like everyone has a part rather than one sole person. Manfred in the books is a 22-year-old phone psychic. He, dresses in all black, has piercings all over his face. He has one of his eyebrows with so many rings you can't even see the hair. Like a gothy pierced man. His hair is dyed a fake platinum. And he has multiple tattoos. He has an ankh on one arm and a lightning bolt on the other. And he can only talk to ghosts through seances. His biggest power is, he gets feelings off of people. He can read people like books. He can kind of sense things about them. That's why he's pretty good, I guess, with being a phone psychic, even though a lot of it is lying. But he does actually have powers. He's not just a fake psychic. Manfred in the show, however, is quite different. Manfred is played by, I'm going to say this wrong, it's a French name. Is it Francois Arnaud? It looks like Francis Arnaud, but he plays Manfred, and I believe he was in his 30s when he played Manfred, so, just a tad older. He doesn't really have any piercings. He does have earrings. I believe in one of his ears he has 2 rings, so he's got something, but not a lot. He does have tattoos, but it's not the same. He has, a set of arrows going up on one arm, and then a set of arrows going down on the other arm, and it's supposed to symbolize, a power flowing in and out. It doesn't actually, affect his powers, that isn't magic tattoos. They're just kind of, symbolizing it. His hair is brown, and he has hazel eyes. It's not dyed. It is kind of spiky. It's gelled up, so it's got that going for it, but it ain't fake platinum. He is a psychic who does readings for people, but his main power is he can talk to ghosts. He can see ghosts, communicate with ghosts, and ghosts can possess him so that the ghosts can communicate to other people or show him memories, of their last moments. This is shown in the first season when Audrey possesses Manfred and he can see her death. And then he starts spitting up water, which is creepy. I found this out because I read the book after I watched the show. Manfred can't really see ghosts in the books. He has done a few seances where he can talk to ghosts, and he does, have a vision where he talks to Audrey, or Audrey talks to him. But he can't, outright be like, "Hi, ghost." It's not a consistent, ghosts are everywhere. In the show, it's every ghost, Manfred's like, "What's up?" Some are demonic, but, he can communicate with ghosts. And he's hanging out with his dead grandma, basically the entire show. Just her ghost is lingering around and following him. That doesn't happen in the books, so. But hey, Zelda's a pretty cool lady. Bobo is described as being in his 30s, tall and robust. He has golden brown hair, his skin is a dusty tan, and he has brilliant blue eyes. His laugh is big and golden and happy, but he has lines on his face to indicate that he's been sad for quite some time. He is played by Dylan Bruce on the TV show, and he was in his mid-30s when he played Bobo, so fits around the right age range. He is 6 feet tall, and I don't know exactly what shade of brown his hair is, but if it's not golden brown, it's close. I wouldn't say he's overly tan, but he's not pale white. He's got, you know, some tan color to him, and his eyes are blue. I think the actor they chose for Bobo fits the bill pretty well. In my personal opinion, when I imagine Bobo, I imagine fluffier hair, but not bad. Now, Fiji was one that I had trouble with. I got a lot of these descriptions from the first book in the series. They kind of, like, when they're introduced, gave, like, a basic description. Fiji, I might have read over it. I couldn't find a description on Fiji. She was curvy and has freckles, which Bobo thinks is cute. Her hair is impossible to tame. Every time she tries to put an outfit together, she puts pieces and wants to create, you know, this look, and it never really turns out the way she wants it to. Her love life is crickets. She's a witch who plays down her abilities because she doesn't want to scare people. She plays into the idea that she's, you know, just, you know, placating the masses and not really a witch herself. You know, tries to play down her abilities. But there are moments throughout the books where she, you know, woo! She lives in her grandmother's home. I believe she inherited it from her grandma. And she has a talking cat. But physical description? Not much. In the show, she was played by Parissa Fitz-Henley. She was about 39, 40 when she played Fiji, which is probably close to around the age. They didn't really give Fiji's age, but I'm guessing that she's probably close to Bobo's age. I'm guessing. In the show, she lives in her grandma's home. She has a sarcastic cat who talks. She wears, like, free spirit clothes, you know, long skirts, flowy shirts, kind of like how you'd think a hippie would dress, you know, like she's, like, with nature, you know? So, off of that description, I think she fits quite well. Olivia is 5'9". She is thin but not gaunt, with square shoulders and thin muscular arms. When Manfred first meets her, she has, like, this reddish, almost auburn hair, which he believes is dyed, because he dyes his hair, so he can kind of recognize it. And she has green eyes, which he also believes are contacts. So, what's her real eye color? Nobody knows. Olivia was played by Ariel Kebbel. She was in her early 30s when she played this role, which they don't really give Olivia's age, but I'm guessing most of the main characters are probably around 30 to 40. Obviously, Manfred is 22 in the books, but from like 20 to 30 probably. Maybe older. So, it fits pretty well. She has blonde hair. In the first season, she has long, straight blonde hair. In season 2, she cuts it, like, here. And she has brown eyes. Now, of course, in the book, Manfred believes her hair is dyed and that she's wearing contacts, so honestly, she might fit the bill quite well. And this actress was actually on Vampire Diaries, so that's where I saw her first, and then I was like, oh. Then there's Creek. Creek is 18 years old. She has black hair just past her jawline, and it's like straight cut, so it's all the same length. Her skin is smooth and poreless. Her eyebrows match her hair. They're strokes. They're beautiful. Ah. Now this is from Manfred's point of view, and he has a crush on her, so. She has light blue eyes and is just 2 inches shorter than Manfred, which I don't know how tall Manfred's supposed to be in the book, but okay. Creek is played by Sarah Ramos, who is about 25 years old when she played Creek, so a little bit older, which fits a little bit better because, you know, Manfred is older in the show, so you have like a 30-year-old trying to get with an 18-year-old. It's a little weird. She has brown wavy hair that goes just past her shoulders, and she has blue eyes. She's about 5'5". The actor who plays Manfred is 6'2", and Creek is 5'5", so there is definitely a more dramatic height difference between the two actors. But honestly, it doesn't matter. Joe is muscular to the extreme. He's tan, though he has thinning brown hair, which kind of... his body looks strong and young, but the wrinkles on his face kind of suggest that he's older than what he really looks. Joe is played by Jason Lewis, who is in his mid-40s when he played Joe. He had, I'd say, tan skin, and his hair was luscious and curly and long. In the book, he's described as having thinning brown hair, and I would not consider Joe's hair in the show thinning. It's luscious. It's like a mane of a lion. It's like a dirty blonde hair color, and his eyes are blue. So not perfect, but cool. Chewie is described as being a short, caramel-skinned Hispanic man. He's probably around 40 years old. He has eyes that are marked with crow's feet and show his age, but he has no graying hair. No gray hair in sight. His voice is soft with a slight accent, and he's as muscular as Joe is. He is played by Bernardo Sereno. I think he fits the description to a T. When I think of Chewie, I'm like, alright, there he is. So, good on them. Now, the Rev is one of those characters that they did not stick to when it comes to descriptions. The Rev is described as being in his 60s and of Hispanic origin. He's cadaverous and his skin tone is much darker than Chewie's. There are deep creases in the man's cheeks and he has thinning black hair. He is 5'5" in his cowboy boots. And one of the main accents of every outfit he has one of those, I think it's a bolo tie or a string tie, and he has the clasp being like a chunk of turquoise. Badass. Rev is played by Yul Vasquez, who is in his 50s when he played this role. He is of Cuban descent. He's 5'11", with brown hair and pale skin, but he does have the string tie that he wears. He still fits the Rev mold as being, the Reverend that keeps to himself, doesn't really talk to anybody. Acting-wise, he does, pretty good. Out of all the characters, Lem is definitely the most dramatic change from book to show. In the book, Lem is described as having platinum hair, almost white, and pale gray eyes, like the color of ice and snow melting on asphalt, a very cold gray. His skin is pale as the moon, and he's ice cold. He's not much taller than Manfred, but his presence is much bigger than him. He walks into a room and you notice him. He is a vampire who can feed on blood, but it can't be artificial or in a bag. It has to be direct from the source, or he can take energy. In the show, Lem is played by Peter Mensah, who was in his 50s when he took on the role. He is bald with piercing blue eyes. They stare into your soul. He is tall, sitting at 6'3", and he is a vampire who can feed on blood or energy. The main difference is in the book he's described as like every vampire ever, very pale. Eyes are very pale, hair is very pale, he's like a walking glow stick. And in the show, obviously, they move away from that, and I'm completely okay with that, because every vampire is like a pale, blonde-haired white boy. And I like this. Now that we've gone over the characters, which honestly with this show they did a pretty good job. The main differences would be like ages, and a few they did change ethnicities, but honestly doesn't change from the story, and why not? It adds diversity to the show and makes things more interesting. Sometimes it's nice to have characters look exactly the same, but sometimes it's interesting to see a character be different.
Soldier, keep on marching on. Head down till the work is done.
The first main change from the show to the books is the fact that they exaggerate everything. In the show, supernatural stuff does happen. I mean, it involves supernatural characters, but a lot of it is subdued. The supernatural elements, they make it feel more realistic, more like in this world, rather than, over the top, all over the place. With a TV show, if you go subdued, it's not as entertaining. So obviously they're gonna amp it up. They make things more dramatic. They make things happen faster. They go woo, and they exaggerate the supernatural aspects of the story, which honestly I don't mind. In the show, Joe is an angel, and Chewie is a demon. They should be enemies, but they love each other. In the books, I believe both of them are angels. So it's just a slight change, but it does add an interesting dynamic to their relationship where, a being that's supposed to be all good and then a being that's supposed to be evil find a middle ground and love each other. Aww. And they have a cute dog, so that adds to the vibe. When it comes to romance in the books, it is also subdued. Everyone knew that Manfred had a crush on Creek, but it didn't really go anywhere. Same with Olivia and Lem. You know that they're together, but, we don't get juicy tidbits. Joe and Chewie are together, but, you know, and it takes Bobo and Fiji, I believe, 3 books to kiss. And in the show, I believe they kiss in the 4th episode. So they, in the show, they kind of speed this stuff up. With, you know, Creek and Manfred, instead of, you know, it basically never happening, they fall in love, they make out, they, you know, have their moments. They show cute moments between Joe and Chewie, they show cute moments between Olivia and Lem. They actually go into the relationships. Bobo and Fiji, you know, is a little rocky here and there, but they, you know, they don't wait 3 books to kiss. Speaking of Creek, she has a much smaller role in the books than she does in the show. In the show, she's a main character throughout season 1 and a big-ish character in season 2 until she kicks the bucket. Sorry, Manfred. In the book series, she is only involved in the first book, and then her and her family leave. It ends with them running off. Manfred and Creek never really get to have their moment together, and she's gone. They included her more in the show than, you know, originally was planned, and I'm okay with that. In both the book and the show, Connor is a killer, because of course he can't be normal. In the show, he kills a girl named Tiffany. Now, the other Midnighters find his dad with the girl and believe that he is the killer. However, things come to light, and it is revealed that Connor killed Tiffany, and Connor killed Audrey. Connor, has had some problems in the past with killing animals, so they decided to go to Midnight, Texas to basically protect the world because everyone in town is supernatural, so they can protect themselves from him. But Audrey wasn't, and he kills her. That doesn't go well with anybody in town. But before they realize this, he is driving out of town with Creek. Creek figures it out. Luckily, Joe saves her before Connor could do anything. He runs off into the desert and Lem snaps his neck. In the book, Connor doesn't kill a girl named Tiffany. The group kind of figures it out on their own, and they go and confront Connor, Creek, and their dad at the gas station that they work at. And at first, Connor denies it, but then, you know, he wants his limelight, so he admits it. He had killed animals in the past, and he actually killed their next-door neighbor. So they moved to Midnight, avoiding cameras and publicity, and, you know, moved to this small town full of supernaturals, thinking that maybe Connor could get better. Connor didn't. Audrey liked to flirt with everybody, and Connor was 15 years old, so she probably shouldn't have even been play flirting with him. But he took advantage of this, and I don't know, one thing led to another where she was running into the desert, you know, laughing, running, and he was following her in a truck. And eventually she realized that he wasn't joking, and he sped up, hit her with the car. She bounced, fell off the side of it like a small, like, cliff, like a very small, like, ledge, hits the ground, and then he takes a fire poker that they use for snakes and stabbed her with it. Because of the way he stabbed her, it looked like a gunshot. And then he went back a few days later and left a gun from Bobo's store to blame it on him. Because they know that Connor's not going to stop. He already killed his neighbor, he's killed animals, he killed Audrey. He's not going to stop. He'll kill another. Lem snaps his neck and ends his tyranny. Because of this, Creek and her father leave. They don't want to stay in town anymore, and the cops have questions that they can't answer or don't want to answer, so they leave. Speaking of Audrey, Audrey's got a lot of secrets. In the show, Audrey has a husband, who is the leader of a white supremacist group. She is sent to Midnight to seduce Bobo to try and get the secret of a stash of weapons that he supposedly has. It's a rumor, because his parents were also white supremacists, and supposedly they had a cache of weapons. Rumors. So she was sent there to try and see if she could find out where this cache of weapons was so the Sons of Lucifer could take said weapons. But in doing so, she kind of starts to fall for Bobo, and sadly it ends with her getting killed by a 15-year-old boy, but she did truly begin to love Bobo in the process of lying to him. And she was still married when she agreed to be his fiancé, so that's a whole nother level. That's just terrible, but move past that. In the book, her story is basically the same, except her husband is dead. her husband dies, and she still goes to Midnight to try and find out where this stash of weapons is that Bobo's grandfather had. And so she's lying to him and, trying to wriggle under his skin, but she does truly love him, grow to love him. So the main difference between the two is she is sneaking around, she is lying about who she is, but in the show, her husband is still alive, and he basically blames Bobo for her death, saying it's his fault, and that he killed her, even though Connor did that. In the book, her husband is dead, but the group is still blaming Bobo for her death regardless. Another difference between these two groups that Audrey is a part of is that they changed the name. In the show, they're known as the Sons of Lucifer. In the book, they are the Men of Liberty. In both, they are white supremacist groups who suck ass. They just suck. They're rude. They're terrible. In the book, they show up at Audrey's funeral, which is just not okay, but then there's Manfred's backstory. In the show, his main reason for coming to Midnight was because his ghost grandma told him that he would be safe there. She did have psychic powers, but she did like to scam people, and she scammed the wrong people. She owed them money and died, so of course Manfred had to pay the debt. Manfred was almost killed by one of these people, and he ran off to Midnight to try and hide from them. I believe sometime, I think it might be season 1 or 2, they do come back looking for him, but he goes to Midnight to basically hide. In the book, they don't mention anything like that Zelda had any debt that would cause him to want to hide. In the book, it seems like he just wants to find a place where it's, kind of remote, where he doesn't have to deal with prying eyes, where he can kind of, work on his psychic business, do one-on-one meetings, and just get a little less limelight, even though he does have a website where, basically like a magician website, so. But there's no evidence that he goes there just to hide. And lastly, there's Lem's backstory. In the show, Lem is a slave, and he is beat and treated like absolute shit. He runs out into the desert and comes across a Native American man named Zachariah. He knows what Zachariah is and pleads for Zachariah to turn him. Zachariah's like, there's no turning back once you do this, man. And he's like, there's no going back for me anyway. So Zachariah bites him, feeds him his blood, and turns him into a vampire. Now in the books, obviously that backstory ain't gonna work. They don't really go into his backstory in the book. He's kind of just old. That's about it. He's a vampire who can drink blood and take energy, but they don't really talk about like how he became a vampire. They don't go into his story. So I don't know how different this backstory is to his backstory, because obviously I don't know his backstory. But I mean, honestly, it's a good change. You actually go into Lem's character, you get to learn about him. And that's one of the things that I like about this show is you get to go into who he is. The books doesn't really do that. They don't really go into the deep psyche of people. Which I guess isn't necessary for a book, but it's also like, I want to know more. I want to know your story. Disclaimer, I have only read one book in this series. There are 3, and some of the characters I have learned after reading the first book that they're actually involved in other series, like they show up in other places, which I did not know. But there are 3 main Midnight Texas books. I have read the first one. That's why, if you couldn't tell, a lot of these differences were from the first book, for the fact that I have not read the other 2. Maybe I'll do another part once I read the second and third book. This adaptation actually did, I would say, a pretty good job. Character descriptions, most of the characters work really well. Some don't, but honestly, I think the some that don't work really well within the story regardless. The storylines are exaggerated. Some things happen way sooner than they're supposed to. Some things they just decide aren't gonna happen. Like, there's this whole moment where they light a white supremacist house on fire in the book, and they just kind of didn't do that. So that was cool. Fiji gets kidnapped at one point, and then, makes the guy, because she gets kidnapped and basically, like, thrown in the back seat, and while he's driving, she makes him imagine that there's a snake biting his foot, which is cool. And obviously I haven't read the other 2 books, so I can't talk about a lot of the details that happen in season 2 of the show. because I don't know much about the hotel or any of that, if any of that is accurate to the books or not. Once I read the other books, I'll have to do a part 2 so I can kind of, you know, see how different they are. Obviously, I have some knowledge, but I don't have a lot of knowledge. When I first watched Midnight Texas, I watched it when it originally premiered, and I didn't know it was based on books. I did not. I didn't read the first book of this series till was it like 2 months ago? Very recent that I read that book. So, you know, there's a dramatic gap between when I watched the show and when I read the first book. But, you know, if I ever get around to reading the other 2, I'll definitely do a part 2. Because why not? Midnight Texas was one of those shows that I actually really liked. Obviously, it got canceled after season 2, sadly. Was the acting 10 out of 10? No. Was the, you know, the special effects or the storylines, you know, perfectly planned out? No. But I enjoyed it. I had a good time watching. Obviously, Lem is my favorite character, but I'm biased. If there's a vampire character in a show like this, you better believe he's my favorite character. Like right now, I'm obsessed with a show called Sanctuary. You want to guess who my favorite character is? Nikola Tesla. He's a vampire in that show. Oh my god. And he's kind of a dick, but hey, he's my favorite character. So if there's a show where it's got multiple supernatural creatures in it, the vampire is probably going to be my favorite. Biasly. Obviously, I do like the other characters, but Lem's going to be my favorite. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll be back again next week with another one. Alright, I'll see you later.